Hey everybody, PT here, doing a midweek check-in with you. Missed you last week, but I'm sure you understand that as I was on my honeymoon, I was taking some focused time with my new wife. I want to thank you all for holding us up and lifting us up in prayer, and I want to get straight to your message this week. If you were here in Columbia and you visited the Way campus while we were on our honeymoon, then I know that you were blessed by the word from Elder Pat Reedy, who preached in my place on Sunday. I was privileged enough to watch that, and it blessed me. It really blessed me. And I encourage you to go back to livestream.com/thewaycolumbia and check it out and get your word. I wanted to pull a couple of things from that and just to give you a different perspective, dive deeper. Again, if you go back and watch the message, there are a lot of different pearls that she dropped along the path, a lot of nuggets that she planted. And if you were even here and you missed some things, go back and watch it with an open ear and open heart so that you can receive what you have, what God has for you. But one little spin I want to put on something that she said, that as soon as she said it, towards the beginning of the message, that really spoke to me. You know, I'm a very figurative person, word artist and linguist, and I just like the usage of the word in the Bible, and so I wanted to pull it out for you. She was talking about, her topic was, Lord, I need you, and crying out to God, how God hears you, and all of that stuff. But one of the scriptures or passage that she referred to was Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And she talked about how when they were in their sin, they had disobeyed God, they hid. And it wasn't until they sinned that they realized that they were naked. So going back to that verse and that imagery, when she spoke the words, Elder Pat, when she spoke the words, they didn't realize they were naked until they had sinned. My mind, you know how my mind works, my mind saw naked as vulnerable and sin, of course, as disobedience or disobeyed. I.e., they didn't realize that they were vulnerable until they had disobeyed. And when she kept going in the word, and she talked about how God, eventually found them, confronted them, and they said to him, we didn't face you, we didn't come to you because we were afraid, because we were naked. And again, the same usage of the words, we were afraid because we were vulnerable. We just realized we were vulnerable, and now we're afraid. And so what came to mind, and what I'm probably going to name this midweek message, is naked and afraid. So many times in our life, for those of us, that's all of us at any given time. When I say those of us, I'm talking about everybody. Have walked with God. There have been many times we all have walked with God, been in step with God, in alignment with God. God says move, we move. God says jump, we jump. He tells us how high or how low to crouch. We're in tune with God. And we don't even realize during those moments just how vulnerable we are to attacks, mistakes, sickness, anything coming from the outside world, inner doubts, whatever, because we're in tune with God. That's the only thing we're focused on. We got blinders on to the rest of the world, so we can't see what's going on around us. We have no idea that over there in that bush is an archer with his bow drawn. We have no idea that crawling, just under there where I can't see, is somebody doing a low crawl with their weapons ready for us or whatever. We have no idea that if we just look back, which we have our blinders on so we can't look back. If we look back, we're going to see the things that we used to be afraid of. We don't see that we're exposed. You're vulnerable to God in your nakedness. God made you vulnerable, made you open, made us open and vulnerable to Him, to others, to opportunities, to mistakes, to temptation, whatever. You're vulnerable. But if you're walking in step with God, if you're obedient to what God says, then you don't even realize how vulnerable you are until you, quote unquote, sin, until you disobey till God says something to you to do something and you don't do it. God says don't do something and you do it. And it's not a condemning God. Please understand, I'm not talking about a condemning, foreboding God. I'm talking about the God inside of you that is leading you, that is prompting you. And we don't do what our spirit tells us to do. We do what our spirit tells us not to do. And we disobey the God within us, which is ultimately the same God that is outside of us, in us, around us, over us, under us, and on all sides. So you don't even realize until you step out of step with God and you realize the blinders come off and you realize, oh my gosh, I was protected. I had been protected from, those people, those what people like to call haters. I don't really subscribe to that, but people call haters. The haters have been there. The people that didn't like you, the people that didn't wish you well, they've been there the entire time. But you were so focused. You were so laser focused on what God was doing in your life, being in step, going with this person and on this journey and being studying and having this discipline that you didn't even notice. You've always been naked. You just weren't afraid. So as soon as you stepped out of tune with, and it could be for any reasons, we do this for any reasons, relationships, friendships, sense of lack all of a sudden, when you've been trusting God for your finances and for your provision, and all of a sudden something happens and it's a lean week and you just fall right into, hey, I'm guilty. I've been guilty, and that's, so we all have our areas of falling out of faith. And the blinders come off and you look around and you see, oh my gosh, God was protecting me from all of this entire time. The entire time I was vulnerable, but I was obedient. And what Elder Pat pointed out was she went back to the 1 Samuel 13 scripture about Samuel, the prophet Samuel, and King Saul. And how King Saul was disobedient in one of the battles that God sent him on. He came back. He was supposed to destroy everything, leave everything. He brought back the king. His camp brought back some oxen and some of the choicest meat to sacrifice to God. And that was his justification. We all sometimes do things out of order. The things that God didn't tell us to do. We don't do the things that God told, and we come back with justification. Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it as unto the Lord or whatever. God said, I didn't tell you to do that as unto me. I told you to do what I said do. Don't do what I say don't do. There's a reason for it. There's a reason. There's a blessing down the way. There's a destiny. I'm trying to put you in step with me so that you can have what you desire. So King Saul brought back the spoils of war and claimed that he's going to sacrifice his people, going to sacrifice this to God. And that's when Samuel gave him the wisdom statement, one of the wisest statements in the old covenant. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Let that sink in, and don't let it just be some Old Testament, old churchy saying. Think about those times in your life had you just done what God said do. And you wouldn't have had to give up this and sacrifice that and throw yourself on the altar. God didn't ask you to do all that. He just said, call this person when I tell you to call them. Shut the door in this relationship when I tell you to shut the door. He's telling you to go for this job opportunity when I tell you to go, not one day earlier and not one day later. You don't have to do all this fasting. You don't have to give up everything. You don't have to deny yourself so much. Just do what God says do and trust that it is for your good as far as positioning you to go in the direction you want to go, the things you've already told God you want out of life, the things that God planted in your heart. God's going to make a way for it if you just pay attention. Pay attention. So when I tell you that word ministered to me, maybe I just have a very colorful way of understanding things. I want you to see. If my interpretation or way I received it for myself helps you, then go back and listen to it again, and you'll be able to see some things that I saw. You've always been naked. You've always been vulnerable to God, but now you're only afraid now because you stepped out of step. So get back in step, get back on track. The blinders will go back on, the protection will go back on, and you can focus not on who's coming after you, what's designed to keep you down, or what could, should, and probably won't happen to you to throw you off track. You'll stay focused, you'll stay on track, on path with God, and your life will completely unfold. It will unfold in the most beautiful masterpiece. PT, I'm back in the pulpit on Sunday. Tune in, show up. I want a packed house. We've got outreach this Sunday. So if you have not already sponsored your Little Caesars pizzas, go on Givelify. Give your $5, $10, $20, $25, whatever, $5 piece of sponsor as many as you want. We want to serve at least 100 meals on Sunday, okay? We got to go, Waymakers. Let's do it. All right, have a great week. I love you. See you Sunday.